Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the Wellbeing Economy Toolbox. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes until, because more people are joining every second now. So let's just give it 2 minutes. And I just want to mention that the webinar is being recorded. Just another minute. All right, and now we're 3 minutes past, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to this webinar by the Joint Action PreventNCD, where we are going to introduce the Wellbeing Economy Toolbox, a major milestone in the project, one of the key items for work package number 9 on health in all policies. And we're going to go through a product demonstration. I'm Vrije, and I'm the moderator here today. I work on the JA PreventNCD communication team, and I'm on the organizing committee of the Wellbeing Economy Forum, working at the Directorate of Health in Iceland. And with me here are Eloi Laurent, senior economist and professor at Sciences Po and visiting professor at Stanford University, and Aurore Fransolet, postdoctoral researcher in ecological economics at Sciences Po, holder of the Just Transition Chair at Université, libre de Bruxelles, and visiting professor at Vrije Universiteit of Brussels. My apologies for butchering the various languages in this very short sentence. And if everyone wants to join and actually access the platform now, you can do that by using this QR code and follow while Eloi and Aurore are speaking. And Eloi, with that, I'm going to hand it over to you to start your part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Vrije. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for putting this webinar together. So as Vrije said, we are working on the 9.6.5 subtask of the 9.6 task of the JA PreventNCD work package number 9, and all these numbers mean a very simple thing, which is that for the first time to my knowledge, a very large project on health and health policies incorporates a dimension on the well-being economy. And I would like just to start before going to the toolbox and telling you what we did with Aurore, to explain a bit why it's important and what's the philosophy behind the idea of working on the well-being economy in the context of health and health policies. Let's go to Belém, Brazil, where the COP30 is being held. And let's go to the conversation there. The Secretary General of the WHO very rightly said that the climate crisis is a health crisis. That was one of the declarations in recent days. And what he means by that is that, of course, all people working on climate crisis know that the climate crisis has many impacts, and one of them is impact on health. And prior to the COP30, there was the publication by the Lancet Countdown of the striking amplitude of those impacts on health. And so it's very important to connect the question of health with the question of the environment, or rather to connect the question of climate action to the question of co-benefits and the question of health, so that people understand that climate action is not something which is distant and abstract, but very clearly located in actually human bodies. And so to have this great convergence between the climate community and the environment community and the health community. And this has been going on for the last 15 years. And now this convergence is producing a lot of effects, which is that those questions are being studied together. And you had, over the last 15 years, concepts such as One Health emerging, planetary health emerging. And this is very important. But then let's go back to Belém and to Brazil and to hear what is being discussed. What is being discussed mostly is impact and consequences. The fact that we are seeing a lot of consequences and actually a collapse of both the biosphere and human health in connection. But what is the driving force behind that? I mean, this health environment emerging community cannot be just about consequences and impact. It has to also be about mitigation and finding the source of this joint disaster. And the source of this joint disaster is the economic system. And this is the piece that's missing in this emerging community, which is that, yes, health, climate, and environmental issues have to be studied together. By the way, Lula opened the COP with the idea that the COP was as much about climate as it was about the preservation of the Amazon forest. And by that, you have a sort of connection between climate, biodiversity, and ecosystems, and health. But we also need to focus on the question. I'm sorry, there is a lot of noise in Paris. I'm speaking from Paris. You also need to focus on what is the nature of the economic system which is driving this issue. And it's very clear for a number of people that the nature of the economic system is an economic system obsessed by economic growth, and that this obsession of economic growth is driving both damages in the biosphere and damages in the human health, and we're going to see more and more on that. My point is that the need to focus on the well-being economy, as we do in this project, has to do with creating a new alliance. And this new alliance is between the health and care community, environmental studies, and the post-growth community. And bringing together those three allies in this reinvention of the economic system, which can prevent a further destabilization of the biosphere and a further collapse of both the biosphere and human health. And so what we do with this, and I think I really want to commend JA PreventNCD for having this subtask on the well-being economy, because it's absolutely crucial that the study of health policies is related to this growth-obsessed economic system. It has started with, of course, the idea of the commercial determinants of health, which is a way to translate into economic terms this question of how to, have sustainable health policies. But it has to be extended to the greater logic behind this growth-driven economic system. This is exactly what we try to do. So the first point is, this is about creating a new alliance between health and care community, environmental studies, and the post-growth community to bring to life this question of the well-being economy. But as some of you may know, if you follow the literature on post-growth, sometimes post-growth, first of all, it doesn't deal a lot with health, which is a paradox because the idea of focusing on well-being should be first and foremost about human health, but you have a number of papers which kind of neglect the question of human health. And then also, it has to be operational, meaning it cannot be just abstract models, but it has to be clear what we mean by the well-being economy in operational terms so that we can really highlight what already exists in the world in terms of well-being economy policies. I think I've been in the indicators business for the last 15 years. I was part of the Stiglitz Commission back in 2009. And the idea that you're going to create indicators and that those indicators are going to translate into policies is, of course, very optimistic. But most of the time, indicators multiply, but they don't really produce effect. And so what we are trying to do here is first have a sense of what really is the well-being economy, and then try to operationalize the well-being economy into actual policies and show what already exists in terms of well-being economy policies in Europe, because the PreventNCD is about Europe. So enough with the introduction. I'm going to go to the toolbox, but I wanted to give you a sense of what the philosophy is behind this toolbox so you understand better when I will show you the different parts of the website, of the platform, what it's really about. So I'm going to share my screen and you will see toolbox. So first of all, what you see when you open the platform is that there is a definition which we hope is clear of the well-being economy, and we really insist on the fact that the well-being economy is a post-growth economy, that the idea is to go beyond growth as, the social and ecological horizon of the economic system. And then we have other elements which I will comment on later on. So the idea is to give the maximum available resources possible in this toolbox, and it starts with this analytical framework I was talking about. So the first part of the platform is really to give the resources to people to understand what is the well-being economy, where it comes from, what is the logic behind it. And so we have written in the style of an academic paper with all those references that are available, really, I think, exhaustive explanation of what is the literature behind the well-being economy, what is the genealogy, what is the difference, for instance, between the economy of well-being and the well-being economy, what is the purpose of the well-being economy compared to other post-growth streams, because you know that there are other post-growth streams, for instance, degrowth or the donut economy. By the way, I don't think that we should necessarily look for a conflict between those different streams. I think they should work together, and they can work together, which is one of the things that you see here, how to make those different streams work together. And so we go really in detail to explain the different conceptual framings of the well-being economy, what's the purpose of that, and also all the different conception that you see. And I want to stress that this is really a collective effort within JA PreventNCD. This subtask was really, created by Aurore and me, well, the output of this subtask, but the whole 9.6 task on the well-being economy really contributed to this. And we had really some extensive common work on a definition of the well-being economy. But there are many different definitions of the well-being economy. And so we try to explain, how our own definition is really embedded within a larger effort of those, and we reference everything that we have in it. And then we arrive to a point where we can say, well, this is how we understand the well-being economy. And the purpose of this is that, and focusing on certain dimensions, is that we want to arrive to an operational framework. And so we have this very inclusive framework of what the well-being economy is about, focused on three key notions, which are sufficiency, health, and cooperation, and then dividing those two core dimensions of health and cooperation into 6 domains, which are individual health, collective health, and ecological health for health, and then social relations, social justice, and democracy for cooperation. And the point of that is that with this framework, and we explain again all the reasoning behind this framework, with this, we are going to arrive to actionable domains. That is, ways, practical ways to translate those dimensions into policies. And why are we going to do this? Because then we are going to go into the real world of policy making in the European Union at different level of governance and see how those policies actually already exist. Because again, that's the point of what we are trying to do. We are not here to create an indicator. We want to highlight existing policies from the ground up. So it's really a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach about, existing policies. And so we do that. Again, you can click on all those links and you will be, directed to all those resources. And we have this framework. And with this framework, we also include in that the different kinds of policy instruments that you can have when you are doing policy making. Because at the end of this process, we are going to cross our actionable domains with the different kinds of instruments in policy making and try to build a matrix of, actionable domains of the well-being economy on the one hand and policy instruments on the other. And this toolbox is really, filling up this matrix with 115 existing policies that really showcase the well-being economy and that all is going to talk about. I want to end this with the fact that you have many, many resources. I think you have hundreds, if not thousands of resources in the toolbox, starting with this part about conceptualizing and operationalizing the well-being economy. Of course, you have all the resources that are available in very simple format that you can access, and you have a lot in terms of resources in there. And you also have this section which is called Explore Further, where we explore other hotspots of available and interesting resources. And Vrije talked about the Wellbeing Economy Forum, which is this forum which is being held under JA PreventNCD in Reykjavik. And you have in there a lot of resources also that are available in terms of video, in terms of scholars taking part in that. So you can, of course, download the report. But for this part, which is not really the toolbox by itself, you see that it also already works as a toolbox in the sense of giving people the resources to understand the well-being economy literature and where we position ourselves in this literature, and the necessity of really having an operational vision of this well-being economy. And with that, we go to the toolbox and we explore the real world of well-being economy policy making, and Aurore is going to talk about it.
Yes, so I'm going to share my screen. So now we are going to dive into the toolbox, so which is really the heart of the website. So in the toolbox, you can find for now more than 100 well-being economy policies. So all these policies have been identified based on documentary research, but also based on a consultation of experts on well-being economy that have been done through a survey. And this has been completed by a workshop at the Wellbeing Economy Forum last spring. So thanks to this process, we identified a large number of well-being economy policies, and we have selected 100 of them in a way that enabled to highlight the diversity of well-being economy policies. So we try to cover the different actionable domains that Eloi mentioned before, but also to cover different types of policy instruments and different regions. So here, when you arrive in the toolbox, you can first have a look at the user guide that will help you to make the most of the toolbox. So in this guide, you can find first some information about the broader philosophy of the toolbox, which is our approach that Eloi introduced to you before. You can then better understand how the first role of the toolbox, which is to explore and compare well-being economy policies. And to do that, we have developed for each policies a sort of policy brief that is structured around the same logic. So for each policies, we have the same components which enable to better understand the content of the policy, but also to compare them among each other. Then you can also learn more how to design well-being economy policy mix, which is one of the objectives of the toolbox, which is really to support the elaboration of a coherent policy mix for ensuring a well-being economy, with this idea that building a well-being economy requires systemic transformation that needs to have like mixes of policies that cover all the different actionable domain of the well-being economy. And for each actionable domain, we need to combine different types of policy instruments. So as Eloi said before, we consider different types of policy instruments that are the regulatory, infrastructure and service, financial, voluntary, informational, but also procedural instruments. And last but not least, in this user guide, you have also some way to contribute to the toolbox, as it is a collective effort. So it is possible first to communicate to us some things that are missing in the toolbox, some in the fiche notably. It is also possible to participate to the development of the toolbox but with a questionnaire where you can propose some well-being economies policies, as during the next year we are going to add about 100 more well-being economy policies. It is also possible to join our upcoming workshop that will be aimed at mapping well-being economy policies, and also to propose some focus on specific cities, regions, or countries that Eloi will develop a bit more later. But then if we go back to the toolbox, there are two ways to search for the well-being economy policy. So the first one is the list. So here you have a list with all the policies, and it's possible to search them by keyword, but also by dimension, which corresponds to the 6 dimension that Eloi presented before, by actionable domain, where we have all the different actionable domain of the well-being economy. Also, we can search by policy instruments and by governance level. So here we consider 3 levels. There is the European, national, and subnational. So it is the first way to look at the policies. And the other tool is the map of Europe. So here we have a map with all the hotspots of well-being economy policies. And for example, here we have quite a lot of well-being economy policies in Belgium, as we have made a focus on this country with our partner. And here we can find all the different well-being economy policies that have been identified for this geographic area. So here, for example, if we can click on one of the policy, which is the fiche of the Nutri-Score for guiding healthy choices. And so here the fiche is structured around the same logic. We first have a summary that presents the main objective of the policy. Then we have the presentation and context that present ideally with figures the problems that the policy intends to address, usually with figures at the European level. It also presents the content of the policy, how it is supposed to work, and how it has been implemented. Then we have the reception and impact. So when the data are available, we present the impact of the policy in terms of with quantitative indicators, and also we present how it was, what was its reception on the society. Would it be the citizen or the civil society? We also discuss if there have been some resistance from some actors. Then we have the limitation, which identify the main shortcoming of the policies and how it could be improved. And finally, we have the development and future prospect that explain how the policy is planned to evolve, or it could evolve to address the limits that we have identified. Here it's the presentation of the policy, and then we have the section to be mixed with, which includes other policies that are also in the toolbox and that are complementary with this policy, so that could be implemented in policy mix with this policy. And last but not least, we have building outside the box, which include other associated policy that are working on the same area, but that are not included in the toolbox. But for each of them, we have some links to better understand what is the content of this policy. So here, if we go on the left, we have the ID card of the policy that show the well-being economy dimension it is intended to contribute to, as well as the actionable domain of the well-being economy, the type of policy instrument, the level to which it's implemented, the country where we can find it, and if it's an existing or an emerging policy. So here is an overview of the toolbox. So I leave the floor to Eloi for presenting the focus.
Thank you very much. Before I present the focus, which is the third part of the website, I just want to go back to the news in Europe and elsewhere, and to show you how the Wellbeing Economy Toolbox reflects and can give you some key resources about what's going on. So if I go back to the toolbox, okay, and I go back to discover the toolbox, okay, I might want to search here, for instance, climate, okay, to see what we have in the toolbox. And we have 39 policies related to climate. And the first one is the fact that in France, there was an effort to present the weather report jointly with some climate news. And so there's this idea that, you know, we are facing climate skepticism and we need to address this information. And so one of the things that, for instance, happened in France is how some prominent climate scientist here, Christophe Cassou, answers question of viewers within the context of the weather report to basically help citizens understand that weather and climate are, of course, linked, and that the idea that we should now report on the climate the way we report on the weather is actually important. So this is the kind of resource you can find, but you also can find here the question of course, involvement of citizens in climate policy, and here the My 2050 simulation tool, for instance, on how climate and how citizens can be involved in creating low carbon transition. And again, you have all the resources. But I want to also go to something which may be a bit more controversial, which is if you follow European news this weekend, you, of course, know about the Omnibus Act. And the Omnibus Act is the fact that in the EU, we have some political forces which are trying to let's say, amputate a bit of the Green Deal, which is going on. And for instance, a lot of the debate was on due diligence. And due diligence, well, if you type due diligence in the toolbox, we have actually a policy on how to make global supply chains accountable. Yeah. Now you might argue, well, this is not about health, and this is really not about, you know, the topic of the well-being economy. On the contrary, it's exactly one of the instruments that you can find on the question of the well-being economy, because it's about really going, you know, along the supply chains and to see the environmental and social impact. And you have, you know, first of all, the effort that was made in the European Union to bring together this accountability in terms of global supply chains, and also the fact that some, like Oxfam, argued as far back as February that there was a risk actually of an omnibus package to simplify the due diligence requirement. And you have the link to what Oxfam offered as a counter proposal, not actually to dismantle this due diligence, which is extremely important in the well-being economy. So this is one of the ways, you know, what we did resonates with the news. I want to close this, not to be too long, with the third part of the website. So already, again, hundreds, if not thousands, of references to a number of policies, but we also try to use the partners and work with them in JA PreventNCD to go deeper, actually, in some well-being economy policies, because what Aurore presented is, you know, policies. For instance, if you type food here, you will see that a lot of those policies are related to food. Okay. But then there's not, for instance, there's a lot of detail already, and the work was actually really considerable to bring this together. But there's not a lot of detail on the actors. Okay, and so what we did in those focuses is that we ask our partners to focus more on the actors. And so Cienciano, for instance, Elena from Cienciano was in charge of writing a focus on Belgium with some greater detail. So this is why, as Aurore mentioned, Belgium is such, well served in terms of the well-being economy policies related, because there are 15 policies in the focus on Belgium. And what she did, Elena, was really to try to come up with, stakeholders, for instance, which appear right at the beginning of what stakeholders are saying about the policies. And so here you have a more detailed framework on actually the policies, but also the actors, the players which are involved in these policies, the obstacles and opposition, because here we want to get into the nitty-gritty of those policies. Again, this is not about an indicators. This is also not about a simulator of some kind of numbers. It's really about the human fabric of the well-being economy. It's really about human stories and how you make policies, and how, of course, policies are being resisted and they are being reframed and reinvented, etc. So what you have in those focuses, which are for the moment only for France and Belgium, is really more of the fabric of the policy. And the other focus on France, and we did that in partnership with the French Healthy Cities Network. And again, you have more detail on what French cities are doing in terms of the well-being economy policies and where this is taking place. And the idea is really, and this is a call to the people who are listening today, that we really want to integrate more and more of these detailed perspectives on those well-being economy policy, because in the end, what we did with Aurore is really to create a resource which serves as a source of inspiration. Like, first of all, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. A lot is already there, and a lot is already existing. And also, what we really need to do is disseminate these policies so that they become more and more prevalent. And so the idea is really that it serves as a source of inspiration for anyone wanting to develop the well-being economy. So I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope you have enjoyed this presentation. And really, as Aurore said, please participate. This is a collective endeavor. This is not about Aurore and me alone. This is about the whole well-being economy task, the whole work package on health and all policies, and the whole JA PreventNCD, but it goes also further, and we need to have input so that we can develop this well-being economy toolbox as we are already working on the Wellbeing Economy Toolbox 2.0, which will be online in September 2026, and we hope to add really 100 new more policies. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much to both Aurore and Eloi. I just want to say congratulations again on the platform, and really making the concept of well-being economy accessible through this tool, and just giving this evidence base in a very well structured and clear manner. Again, congratulations on that. And I wanted to remind people again of what Eloi just said earlier. About the Wellbeing Economy Forum, which is happening in Iceland in 2026 on the 16th and 17th of April, where this will obviously be a very big topic of discussion and how to utilize this. So I encourage everyone to have a look and register when registration opens. And until then, I wanted to just see if there are any questions. You can use the chat to ask questions for Eloi and Aurore. So we'll give it a couple of minutes for people to please submit their questions if you have anything to add. So because the microphones and cameras are not active on this webinar because of the number of people, I need people to please write in the Q&A section. If you can see that. And we're actually going to see if we are able to. Yeah, if you raise your hand, I guess we can open the microphone. So we have one hand raised. So Heidi. Let me see. Okay, Heidi, if you unmute yourself.
I will.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, yep.
Excellent. As far as I could see from the map, there were no marks for Norway on the map. And I was wondering, because I do know that our government has a well-being economy policy. Can the people who made the map comment on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. Actually, if you go to the toolbox and you type in Norway, you have 10 policies related to Norway, right? So Norway is very much represented in the toolbox. It might be that there might be some problem in terms of, I'm not even sure that there are some problems in the map, actually. Yeah. So no, I think Norway is actually represented.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Any more questions? Okay, Simone.
Hi, yeah, I guess it's kind of a similar question, but just I see like when you in the kind of deep dive focus area right now, there's just one section for France and Belgium. So will the toolbox be continued to be updated, and as that happens, will there be other countries that there will be like kind of these focuses on in addition?
So thank you very much for this question. Absolutely, Simon. Our goal is to have more focuses, and this is why I ended my presentation by calling people to actually contribute and participate, because we are looking for input. And this is just a starting point, those 2 focuses, and we want to have more. And we hope to have a lot of JA PreventNCD work going into the toolbox, but that's under discussion. But we also hope to be able to have to focus more on some countries. And so our dream would be to have 15, 20 countries represented in the toolbox. And even if those countries are already included, such as Norway, as we have seen, it's already included, it has some added value to have a focus on a country done by one person who is actually bringing together the different policies of this country. So it would make sense, even for countries which are already represented, just to have this sense of consistency, because what we need to have in the end is how a set of well-being economy policies, which are of course related, being implemented in a consistent way in a given country, and then to be able to compare different countries' experiences when it comes to implementing those well-being economy policies. So it would have a lot of value. So please, if you want to contribute, just use the interactive tools that are on the platform, and we will respond.
Fantastic. Any more questions or comments? How will the tool be run after the JA PreventNCD?
How will it be run? That's the question?
Yeah.
Well, there is an obligation in European projects for sustainability, which means that the toolbox will remain active for 5 years after the project ends. And so then the question is, how will it be maintained? And are we going to have other version after the 2.0 version of September 2026? And this is pretty much in flux. You know, this has been online for some just, you know, a few weeks, really. It was in mid-October. So we are still, you know, getting the feedback, etc. And we are still wondering what we are going to do with it. But it can become something which remains a permanent you know, platform for the well-being economy, certainly, but it will remain active at least 5 years after the JA PreventNCD ends, which means up until 2032, right? And then the question is, do we maintain it? Do we increase it? Do we feed it with additional policies? That is still open.
Excellent. This is a long-run activity, is a comment. Yes, definitely. And this is the sustainability element of the joint action in general. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. Any more questions or comments? Okay, well, if not, I guess we can wrap it up. And thank you so much, Eloi and Aurore, for joining us and giving this fantastic presentation on this very, very relevant tool. And for everyone to attend, it was really great to have so many people watching this, and hopefully we'll see the Wellbeing Economy Forum, Wellbeing Economy Toolbox, apologies, continue to boom, and really exciting to see the next steps in the development. So thank you very much, everyone. Any last words, Eloi or Aurore?
Just a word to thank you, Frère, on this. There's a nice interplay between us on how we cannot pronounce our names correctly. Okay, I guess you okay, but thank you very much for organizing this. It was a real pleasure to be able to present this, and really thank you for promoting it. And thank you to everyone in JA PreventNCD for helping us achieve this on time. And we hope that it's going to last a long time. You're right. It's a long run endeavor.
Perfect. Any last words, Aurore, or should we just wrap this up?
No, just thank you also.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.